This is the podcast overview for the Chapter 6 objectives on personality and stress. If you'll notice, I tried to be a little more detailed in the objectives for this chapter. Other chapters' objectives haven't had this many points. This is an attempt to try to help you know where to focus and zone in so that you're not forgetting any key things for the tests. The tests are very strongly correlated to the reading that you do in the book. So making flashcards and using these objectives are really good ideas to help you along. This chapter is going to start out by, it kind of has like four main overviews. One are the models of personality, stress, and health. Two is what is personality. Many of you haven't taken personality psych, so it gives you an overview of what exactly is personality, how do we define it, how do we look at it. And then stress and health, personality, vulnerability factors, and then stress and health protective personality factors. So how does our personality hurt us when it comes to how we deal with stress and how that affects our health, and then how does personality help us when we're dealing with stress, and then that's result on our health. So that's kind of like broadly what the chapter is going to cover. Then it starts out getting into detail by distinguishing the various models of personality, stress, and health, and how to understand the ways in which those factors relate to one another. So you're going to be looking at the biological predisposition model, as well as health-related behavior models, just understanding how personality influences health-related behaviors. Different influences, either positive or negative, which can affect our long-term health. And then also moderation models, which look at personality influencing the strength and direction of a relationship between stress and health. So there's a lot of relationship data here, a lot of correlational data. And the moderation model pretty much is one that states that personality acts as a buffer against stress or can intensify our experience of stress. Then we're going to look at personality and how it relates to temperament, traits, states, and dispositions. You want to get a good handle on how those things are different from one another, what they each mean. And then we'll get into digging a little deeper in how personality sort of came about. We'll be looking at Gordon Allport and Cattell's work, Raymond Cattell, who were early pioneers in personality psych, and the models that they proposed to understand personality, how they broke it down into different factors or tenets, different traits of our personality that we have that are enduring and long-lasting. And this is sort of where we've arrived in terms of better understanding personality. We'll look at Gray's model of reinforcement sensitivity theory, which is actually based on animal research, but we'll see how that then led into the behavioral approach system and the behavioral inhibition system, which is ways in which we behave based on our personality traits. So it helps you to kind of see how traits operate in the environment, like in a behavioral sense. Then we'll land on Costa and McCrae's Big Five model, which is where we'll actually camp out and spend a little bit of time. This is also known as the five-factor model, and it's what's used most today to look at personality traits. It uses the NEO-PI revised, so that's the NEO-PIR, to measure personality on 5 dimensions. Okay, and those 5 dimensions are best categorized by the acronym OCEAN, and so you'll see that in the textbook. We've got openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So those are the big 5. And those are really that's the the pinnacle of personality psych, and then it kind of goes from there. So everything else you're going to be reading about in the chapter is based on the Big Five. So once you have an understanding of personality, then we'll turn to look at what factors can make personality, make a person more vulnerable based on their personality to stress. And so more at a risk when it comes to one's health. There are certain traits in our personality that put us more at risk than other traits. So depending upon where you lie on the dimensions of the Big Five, whether you're extroverted or introverted, whether you're agreeable or not agreeable, neurotic or calm and self-controlled, open or more uncreative, down to earth, likes a lot of routine, or conscientious versus say negligent or lazy would be the other end of the spectrum. People lie somewhere on each of those dimensions. And depending upon where you lie, it can either help you or harm you in terms of your health, and also how you handle stress and how you deal with stress. So we'll be looking at that throughout the rest of the chapter. Looking then to also at the connection between psychoneurosis, stress, and physical symptoms. You'll learn what exactly is psychoneurosis and how can that put a person at risk. This involves what's called a neurotic cascade. It's 5 distinct yet interrelated processes, which basically set a person up to be more likely to develop more disorders, more internalizing disorders, and can lead to negative health outcomes. So that kind of helps explain neuroticism as the personality construct in health outcomes. Also describing what is well-being, mental health, and relationship satisfaction for the neurotic individual. So when someone is neurotic, what does that look like for them? What's their well-being like? What's their mental health like? And what are their relationships like? Once you understand that, you'll kind of see a lot of the negative aspects of neuroticism and how it affects people in a poor direction for physical and mental health. Once we've established that and we've looked at, it'll also cover conscientiousness and extroversion and some other personality constructs. You'll need to be familiar with how those constructs affect health. There's things like dispositional optimism that is going to affect health positively. Extroversion is a mixed bag, mainly because there's some good things about it and there's some bad things about it when it comes to our health. But so it'll walk you through not just neuroticism, but the others as well. Also, then you'll take a turn looking at what's called type A behavior pattern. Type A behavior pattern has been linked to heart disease, specifically coronary heart disease. So it is not a good thing. You'll want to be familiar with what are the characteristics of type A behavior. So a person who is type A. The book also covers type B, type D as well, so you'll want to know those, and just understand how it's connected to heart disease. When it comes to type D, which is a distressed personality, you want to be familiar with what kind of items are used on the DS-14 to assess whether or not a person has type D personality. This is a commonly used measure to assess that personality behavior pattern. You'll detail what types of personality factors are shown to be health protective and why. Here's where you get more into conscientiousness, openness to experience, agreeableness. Those are the big ones that are associated with good things about health, particularly conscientiousness, the most robust data comes from the Terman Life Cycle Study, which shows just overwhelming results of the links between conscientiousness and positive health outcomes. You'll look at mindfulness and its role to conscientiousness, and so that'll be helpful as well. So looking at all of these things and how they're related to health, it's going to bring back a little bit of chapter 2, Fredrickson's model of the broaden and build that we talked about back in chapter 2 is going to come into play again. And just the role of resilience. And this is where extroversion really comes into play. Extroversion has been found to boost a person's ability to broaden and build. It relates to their overall better resilience during times of stress. This was also talked about in the upside of stress. So you get a little bit of overlap there with that book that we've been covering. And then lastly, I think I mentioned dispositional optimism, but really what are its health effects, positive health effects that we see in all the protective health benefits of it. And then lastly, we'll be getting more into locus of control. And so here's where we get a lot from Julian Rotter, who developed locus of control, looking at whether you have an internal or external locus of control and how that can often dictate what you do, how much control an individual feels they have in their health is going to dictate a lot. If you think that you're sick and it's due to factors beyond your control, you may or may not do anything about it. You may not take proactive steps to addressing a health problem, or you might not take preventative measures to prevent a health problem if you think there's nothing I can do about it anyways. So it's interesting to look at this as well as how perceptions of control play a vital role in our health. And then lastly, we'll be looking at the components of hardiness, and this was proposed by Maddie and Kobasa. And hardiness is just a construct that describes a person's, again, ability to be resilient during stressful times and how that affects health. And we'll be looking at it in connection with what we talked about back in chapter 1, when Antonovsky's sense of a coherence model was introduced to you. So you might want to go back to that and just check that out as you're reading through the chapter, just to kind of refresh your memory how that model plays a role when it comes to hardiness, and how does it relate to what Maddie and Kobasa propose when it comes to hardiness. So that sums up the chapter. I hope that these objectives will help you sort of pinpoint your studying. Please use them and spend enough time with these as you're preparing for whenever the next exam comes up.